Welcome to the Messenger of Truth channel. God bless you and protect your life. Subscribe, follow our work and share the truth with others. Attos 27. When it was determined that we should sail to Italy, they delivered Paul and certain other prisoners to a centurion named Julius, of the Augustan court. And we put to sea in a ship of Adramyttium, and set sail for the coasts of Asia, Aristarchus, a Macedonian from Thessalonica, being with us. And the next day we landed at Sidon, and Julius treated Paul kindly and gave him leave to go and see his friends, that they might take care of him. And from there we sailed under the lee of Cyprus, because the winds were contrary. And when we had sailed across the sea through Cilicia and Pamphylia, we came to Myra in Lycia. There the centurion found a ship of Alexandria sailing to Italy, and he put us on board. And as we sailed slowly for many days, having arrived only opposite Cnidus, the wind not allowing us to go further, we sailed below Crete, near Salmona. And sailing along it with difficulty, we came to a place called Good Harbors, near which was the city of Lasea. And when much time had been spent, and sailing was now dangerous, because the fast was already over, Paul admonished them, saying, Men, I perceive that the voyage will be with injury and much damage, not only to the ship and cargo, but also to our lives. But the centurion believed more in the pilot and the master than in what Paul said. And since that port was not convenient for wintering, the more of them were of opinion that they should set sail from there to see if they could get to Phoenix, which is a port of Crete that looks to the windward side of Africa and the Coro, and winter there. And when the south wind blew softly, it seemed to them that they already had what they wanted, and they set sail and sailed very close to Crete. But not long after, there came a gale of wind, called Euro-Aquilian. And the ship being tossed about, and not being able to sail against the wind, and giving way to everything, we set sail. And, running below a small island called Cauda, we could only gain the barge. And when they had taken it up, they used all means to girdle the ship, and fearing that they would run aground on the Syrtis, they trimmed the sails, and so sailed away. As we were driven by a severe storm, the next day they lightened the ship. And on the third day, we put out to sea with our own hands the rigging of the ship. And when neither sun nor stars appeared for many days, and no small storm came upon us, all hope that we would be saved was gone. And when they had been long without food, then Paul stood in the midst of them and said, Men, you ought to have listened to me, and not to have set sail from Crete, and thus avoided this trouble and perdition. But now I admonish you to be of good cheer, for there will be no loss of life for any of you, but only for the ship. For there stood by me this night an angel of God, whose I am and whom I serve, saying, Paul, do not be afraid. You must be brought before Caesar, and behold, God has given you as many as sail with you. Therefore, O men, be of good cheer. For I believe God that it will be just as it was told me. We must, however, go to an island. And when the 14th night had come, as we were driven up and down in the Adriatic Sea about midnight, the sailors sensed that they were drawing near to some land. And they took a plumb line and found 20 fathoms, and when they had gone a little farther, they took a plumb line again and found 15 fathoms. And fearing that they would run aground on rocks, they dropped 4 anchors from the stern, and wished for daylight. But as the sailors were trying to flee from the ship, and as they were putting the boat into the sea, as though they would lay out anchors from the bow, Paul said to the centurion and to the soldiers, Unless these men stay in the ship, you cannot be saved. So the soldiers cut the ropes of the barge and let it fall. And as day was breaking, Paul urged them all to take some food, saying, This day is the 14th day that you wait and continue without food, and have taken nothing. Therefore I urge you to eat something, for it is for your health, for not a hair will fall from the head of any of you. And when he had said this, and had taken bread, he gave thanks to God in the presence of all, and broke it and began to eat. And when they were all of good cheer, they also began to eat. And we were in all in the ship 276 souls. Having eaten their fill, they lightened the ship and threw out the wheat into the sea. And when it was day, they did not recognize the land, but they saw a cove with a beach, and consulted whether they should run the ship aground there. They hoisted the anchors and let go into the sea, casting off the rudder ropes, and hoisting the mainsail into the wind, they made for shore. But when they came to a place where there were 2 seas, they ran the ship aground, and when the prow was fixed, it remained stationary, but the stern opened with the force of the waves. The soldiers' idea was to kill the prisoners so that none would escape and swim away. But the centurion, wishing to save Paul, prevented them from doing so, commanded that those who could swim should first throw themselves into the sea and save themselves on land. And the rest, some on boards and some on things from the ship. And so it was that they all came ashore safely.